Welcome back to Bulletin Brass, folks. It has been a while, but we are going to get into it. I watched the inauguration speech yesterday, and we've already seen some action from Trump in office. January 6th, folks got their pardons. He's already doing things that he promised he would do, right? But let's dig into this speech because there's some good, there's some bad. There's some, we'll have to see how it rolls, right? And the bad is not necessarily like bad. It's, look, that sounds great, but in practice, that's got some complications that you're going to have to work out, and it's going to hurt in order to get better later. Like his original tariffs, right? The goal is to increase American domestic production, and in order to do that, you made goods from other countries more expensive. Short term, until the domestic production ramps up and is actually boosting our economy, and there's available goods to buy domestically, it just made everything more expensive. It didn't do anything good domestically immediately. So let's get into this. And I'm going to just do it in order. I was taking notes as I went. There were some serious digs on the Biden administration's behavior, so that America will be respected again all over the world. Oh my God. Like, this just started it, right? And then, I will put America first. Golden age starts now. Restored, rebalanced. Create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. And, radical and corrupt things. America's decline is over. Restore integrity, honesty, and loyalty to the government. Over and over and over. And I'll lay off the rest of them because the point is made, right? There was a strong implication. Not even implication, just a straight up statement. Biden administration had not been working in the best interest of the country, and they had damaged our reputation, our strength, well-being as a nation. To put that boldly in an inauguration speech is a statement. In one sense, it is a hit on the previous administration, right? You are really, you just punched them square in the face. But, and I'm not sure the general left will agree with me. But if you guys have watched me for a while, I am not particularly far right. I am not left. I am pretty central. I think a lot of us look at this and go, look, that's a negative statement. But it's not an attack statement in general. He's not attacking the left in general with that statement. He's attacking people in power. He's attacking the previous administration. And then he goes on to talk about briefly, and I'll give him credit. He didn't harp on it. He mentioned it a couple times, and honestly, I think it could have been left out. But the Justice Department weaponization against him, against others, that is going to be corrected. He's already started. January 6th, folks got their pardons. But we'll see. We'll see how effective that kind of stuff is going forward. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that's a key problem in our nation going forward. Forget left or right. When our government bureaucracies and systems are used for political purposes in that way, you are seriously damaging the fundamental structure of this country, the foundations of this country, funding foreign borders rather than our own. This has been a Trump thing for years. I am not pro-Ukraine. I am anti-Russian aggression. I don't really give a shit one way or the other about Ukraine. I think it is, while expensive to support Ukraine, cheaper than the alternative. That's it. That's the cold, hard math, real politic, right? However, that does not mean that we should not be making sure our own borders are secure. But then he comes back with Martin Luther King's dream. The man worked in the dream during his speech. I feel like how he did it was critical because invoking that image means more than just thanking, right? You're saying that you support their goals, their dreams, their hopes for the future. It's doing it at a level that goes beyond just empty words. Now, whether anything comes of it, I don't know. Then he goes on, he will not forget our country and our Constitution. Critical, right? Because clearly most of us, huge portion of the population feels that the last administration did. Many of the things they did violated it, at least in spirit. But he comes back to the southern border, the national emergency declaration. That's going to be huge. That changes the dynamics of what law enforcement is allowed to do there, what kind of force is allowed to be employed in terms of personnel. You can deploy National Guard troops. You can deploy actual troops. You can actually close the border. But then he comes back with like common sense stuff. And I'm like, I agree with the sentiment, but like, could we stick to one thing? And then he comes back with treating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Massive implications. Now, coordinating this to not royally piss off the Mexican government that is heavily penetrated by the cartels is going to be tricky. I do not think we need to get super heavy-handed with our neighbor. Fantasy world, sure, but like in reality, this is a sovereign nation that has a problem that we are just as culpable for. Like our population is basically funding this problem that is destroying their nation and in return causing problems for ours. Both directions, right? We shouldn't just be deploying military assets to attack the cartels without at least some coordination. Now, that's not going to be hey, we're going to raid this place over here, right? That's not going to work because the cartels will be like, oh, thanks for the information, right? But it could be high-level discussions. Look, we're going to have special forces teams operating, and we're not going to tell you exactly where or exactly when because it will get back to them. We're not saying you personally are corrupt, but can you 100% vouch for every secretary, every aide, that there's no snooping devices, spy devices, that this absolutely won't get back? You can't. However, it could also involve military aid to Mexico. Hey, Mexico says we want to crack down on this group and we could really use some cover. Like when we go and do it, when our military forces go and do this, can we get some drone coverage? Put a team in to monitor this area for anybody leaking out. Things like that. But if we don't coordinate it with Mexico, it's just us being a bully. It's just us being a bully, and I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's good long term. And we're going to have to coordinate this stuff right on through Central America, right on into South America. Do the best we can to work with the other country. And hey, if an occasional strike happens that wasn't discussed at all, say la vie. Revoking the Green New Deal. I think that's a good thing because I think the Green New Deal was a poorly written piece of shit. We'll see what he does. I think that we have to be aware of ecological issues, that the government is responsible for at least setting guidelines that are appropriate. We can't go back to the Wild West days. But the Green New Deal was pretty fucked up. Adjusting the EV mandate, that's going to be real spicy because Elon Musk is directly involved with this administration, right? We'll see. I don't think Musk is afraid of the competition. He is not saying we have to switch. He's saying that we have to get better at it. And most of the market isn't. Most of those companies aren't good at it. The cars they're putting out have gotten worse. They are not good ecologically. Like, they're not. EV in its current format is worse for the environment than the regular car. Not in operation, but in construction and in disposition. Getting rid of those things is an ecological disaster. Producing them is an ecological disaster. Running them? It's better. But it's the whole thing that's the problem. And then he's got the drill baby drill comment. I think that while that gets great press locally and will, certainly Texas is going to be happy about this, North Dakota, other areas that have oil will be happy about this, and domestically it will be good for us. This is not a long term, this is not a many decades thing. If it pumps the economy and gives it a shot in the arm, as long as we're continuing to work on alternatives, great. I think it will be. I think that he will not take that shot in the arm and go, okay, now let's just ignore the rest of the future. I think it's just not worth talking about right now. I think that we will see progress on more nuclear reactors, more hydro, more solar, as these technologies improve. As the efficiency and the scaling improves, I think we'll see more use of them. But as they stand now, not so much. They're not great. And then we moved on to external again. Tariffs for imports. External Revenue Service. People were cheering, rah, 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 yeah. It's going to hurt, right? I'm sure there's an agency actually already responsible for this. We already have tariffs. Like, what? Is it the State Department? Is it the Treasury Department? Like, who handles the tariffs? Customs? Like, who does that? I don't know why we need a new agency. I just don't. But more tariffs on imports. Overall, I'm a fan. You just have to be aware that it's going to hurt short term. I think long term, the key for this country is that we need to be pulled back internally for production. We have gotten way too comfy exporting production rather than product. Now we get into some things where I'm like, this is going to be tricky. Two genders, male and female. I don't think that needed to be said in the inauguration speech. He did not say that somebody couldn't be trans. He was not saying anything about that. He's saying you're one or the other. That, like, you have to pick one of two as far as the federal government's concerned, right? Look, in your personal life, you do you. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that everybody's going to be happy with it, but he very clearly said federal government, right? What your state government does is up to them. What you do in your personal life is up to you. Paying back and rehiring, if they want back, members of the military expelled over the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. How many were really kicked out? I honestly don't know. I don't mean how many left because of it. I mean how many were actually expelled. Because if you chose to leave, this isn't going to count. I'm just curious how many people refused the vaccine and were literally drummed out of the service. Are we talking 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 20,000, 50? I don't know. Peacemaker and unifier. I would have left that out. The hypocrisy with some of the other things he says. Yeah, dude, come on. Plus, it smacks a little bit too much of Biden's phrases. I would have left it out. It goes back to reclaiming our public image, and then comes back to Gulf of America. To me, this smacks of the same thing the left does with renaming stadiums, football teams, removing statues. Look, it's the Gulf of frickin' Mexico. It's the Gulf of Mexico. It's been the Gulf of Mexico for a very long time. It's not a problem with it being the Gulf of Mexico. He said Gulf of America. I disagree with that term. I think that's arrogant. I think that's, again, we're making us the bad guy. Now, if you said it's the Gulf of the Americas, I'd agree. Mexico is part of North America. Central America is right there. They continue the Gulf portion, right, to some extent. Gulf of the Americas is fair. I just don't see why we're bothering. What, really? This is such a non-important, like, ego thing. Just stop. Just freaking stop. Same thing with freaking Greenland. It's not like we have a problem with Denmark that they're an enemy, right? So what's with the freaking Greenland shit? Just stop. You got bigger problems. Mount McKinley, random, really random. I assume there's something going on with that. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with President McKinley and why he included this. Did the Democrats do something related to Mount McKinley? I don't know. So, Panama. Oh boy. Foolish gift of the Panama Canal. Being overcharged. They aren't following the deal. We're taking it back. China. I think that talking about this at all was a strategic blunder. However, maybe that's part of his plan, is to basically bull in a China shop his way through this by a little bit of bluster, a little bit of threat, and maybe he can make him back down without having to use force. But I would have made this statement later when we had maybe a heavy cruiser task force already in the locks, already in the lake, right? Like, there's a battleship parked in the first lock, each direction from the lake. And there's a cruiser task force in the lake controlling the airspace for that whole area. And gee, there's a couple carriers in the area, one on each coast. Come at us, bro. We're taking it back. This is why. Hey, you want to fight about it? Let's do it, right? You present it as a done deal. I assume there's going to be some sort of give and take on this. I don't know. I don't think we're going to actually completely take back the Panama Canal. Trump usually is correct when he says things like we're being overcharged, that it's being, that they're not following the deal. Yeah, if that's the case, that is a strategic resource for the U.S. that cannot be overlooked. Because if you give China the opportunity, they will take your country there, 100%. And if they're already heavily involved and we don't put the brakes on it when necessary, we will have China at our southern border next decade. Because China won't care about the humanitarian issues. they will steamroll all of those countries. The world does not hold China accountable for civil rights violations. The world pretty much only holds the US accountable. Well, let's not let them continue that up to our border. Let's squash that first. So if that's what we're doing, great. I just still don't think that talking about it first was a good plan. You present it as play ball or it goes badly, right? Because we can survive without it. We'll be okay. Train system will get a lot of use, but we'll be okay. Panama, not so much. Now, that is blackmail. That is bullying. I don't know all the context for this, right? I really don't. We gave it up. So this is kind of a shitty situation, saying, hey, we're taking it back. But if they're not following the deal that was part of we're giving it to you, yeah. However, you're getting into a game with China. It's always risky. I think that, again, would have been better to have had the forces in place, have Marines prepped, have the 82nd Airborne, 101st, whoever, have some special forces teams prepped to basically, key power players for that system. Hey, you're in custody. Until this is sorted out, you're in custody, right? If you're going to do this, do it with the full force and might of our nation, not just words giving them time to make it more bloody. And unfortunately, now it's too late, right? Like we've already played that. So now, if we do have to use force, it's going to be more expensive. It's going to result in most likely more lost life on both sides, more possible damage to the canal system, which we do want, right? We don't. Can we survive without it? Yes. Is it good? No. No. There was more. It kept going. But to me, these were the critical things. Anyway, stay safe, everybody. Take care. Have fun. I will see you in the next one.